Hi, good morning. Thanks for coming to the second day of our, as it turns out, 4-day conference because November 22nd falls on a Monday this year. And so we'll be having some stuff all the way through Monday and a moment of silence on the grassy knoll. And we have a line of speakers today on all three of the major political assassinations of the 1960s. And then we'll have some videos starting in about 9 o'clock, I think, this evening over at the Hotel Lawrence. We'll be here in this room today from now until 5 p.m. with a lunch break between 12 and 1. And then we'll have a dinner break of 2 hours, and at 7 we'll start in on Robert Kennedy over at the Hotel Lawrence, which is the next building down on the second floor rear. And we'll have the videotapings there, but we're going to be showing tonight a newly made feature-length film that has Martin Landau and a number of other actors in it called The Commission by Mark Sobel, and it's an independent filmmaker, and it's a film about the Warren Commission, and it's quite interesting, and he's trying to get interest in it and get it distributed, but he was in town and agreed to show it to us here tonight. So we'll have that. We also have one videotape, at least we didn't play last night, on the assassination of Dr. King. And we're starting this morning through lunch with information about the John F. Kennedy assassination, and then after lunch we have presenters on Martin Luther King's assassination. So there's restrooms to the rear and security outside, as I'm sure you noticed, but they're relatively friendly. And we normally have the events here in the courthouse and the jury room, just because it's nearby, and then at the Hotel Lawrence. Okay, Mike, I think we can start it. Okay, so for those that don't know me, my name is John Judge, and I'm with the Coalition on Political Assassinations, and this is our 10th anniversary conference here in Dallas, and we want to thank C-SPAN Radio that contacted us just before the conference started. And they asked if we would do a digital recording of the conference, and they're going to air major portions of this conference on C-SPAN Radio, which covers D.C., Maryland, Virginia as an actual radio station, sometimes simulcasting with C-SPAN TV, and one of the 3-channel events, but also has its own programs. And C-SPAN Radio is also online at c-span.org. So it'll be possible next week to go online if you don't live in the D.C. area and pick up tapes or let people know about the fact that you can listen online to some of the conference all around the country. And it's also common that they will archive shows on both C-SPAN TV and radio at the C-SPAN site, so we may be lucky enough to get archived. Some of they do based on how many people listen. So if you go and listen, it's more likely we'll get noticed or mentioned on the front page and that sort of thing. But it's a real breakthrough for us to be able to get what's effectively some national attention and to get our words out to people. So the first speaker we have today, and I was really pleased that he was interested in coming. He has a new book out about his experiences in his memory, is one of the key eyewitnesses to the John F. Kennedy assassination, a direct witness. And somebody that is known to many people. Certainly the research community knows his name very well, but also many people who just have read a little bit about the case know this person because he figures in to any sort of ballistic reconstruction of the case because he was wounded in the cheek, either by a bullet fragment, or maybe fragment of the curb has been speculated, and he was standing to the front of the motorcade, and if you were facing the way of the motorcade, to your left, down near the Stemmons entrance and the overpass. and so had a clear view of the events of the assassination. So our first speaker today, and we'll have some good time for questions afterwards, is James Tague. And I was glad he could be here. He also has his book for sale and can autograph it later if you want outside at the desk. So thanks for coming, James.
Thank you, John. First of all, I'm a soft speaker, and secondly, I've had a little dental work, so don't talk too plain while I ask me a question. This thing sort of reminds me of this blonde that went to the driver's license bureau to get her driver's license, and the clerk asked her, "When's your birthday?" She says, "November the 20th. He says, "What year?" She says, "Every year, stupid." Now, I'm going to talk about being a witness. I've learned a lot about being a witness, and I mean a lot, personal. To give you an idea of what I'm talking about, what I saw that day, I started enhancing on a little bit. And all of a sudden I realized that some things that I thought I saw, I actually saw on TV that night. There's some things that are very vivid in my memory, and there's some blank spots from being there that moment. First of all, I want to clear up one thing, and I've been trying to clear it up for 40 years. This mark that was on my cheek had nothing, this mark on my cheek had nothing to do with the assassination. There was a scab that healed from an old injury. I was sprayed by debris in the right side of my face that broke the skin in several places. The first person to get that right was Jim Bishop the day the president was shot. If any of you read that book, he talks about the spray. And I've seen writer after writer talk about this, pictures. No, this had nothing to do with it. Debris from hitting the curb sprayed me on the right face, side of my face. Now, as I stood there, I heard somebody throw a firecracker. And I was disturbed about that because I just remembered when I saw the car, I got stopped, and I just remembered that I'd read in the paper where the president was going to be in town that day, and all of a sudden it dawned on me this was the motorcade. And no more had he turned the corner up there than somebody threw a firecracker. And I sat there or stood there and wondering in my mind what kind of an idiot would be throwing a firecracker with the president coming by. And I stared looking into the crowd up around the school book depository. And remember, I'm over 300 feet from the school book depository. I'm right about 15 feet out from the triple underpass. And as I'm standing there trying to figure out what kind of idiot would do that, I hear the crack of two rifle shots, one right after the other. Something stung me in the face during that. Like anybody that would do, a danger signal went off, and I jumped back behind the protection of the concrete of the triple underpass. Now, the pictures that you see of me down by the triple underpass are about 8 or 10 seconds after the headshot. I'm coming, re-emerging from the protection of the triple underpass. As I stand there, I'm sort of in a daze. Now, everything is clear up to this point. And here's where I come into a blank spot. The motorcycle policeman stopping and running up the grassy knoll. I saw it on TV that night, and I thought, for days after, probably months, I thought, well, that's part of it. I saw that. I didn't. That's a blank spot. I woke back up or came out of my trance or whatever you want to call it, when a man in a suit ran up to me named Buddy Walters. I learned that later, deputy sheriff in a suit. He says, "What happened?" I said, "I don't know." And by that time, a motorcycle policeman had walked back down, parked from the grassy knoll, and we walked over to where he was, and just in time to hear a man say his head exploded, and the policeman said, "Whose?" He says, "The president's." So that was the first we knew. Now, let me go back on something I want to make very clear. In rehearsing what my thoughts were between that first and second shot, going over it time after time is 3 to 5 seconds in there. 3 to 5 seconds. The sting did not happen on the first shot. I can tell you positively the first shot was not the missed shot. I see all these different books, and I've got a collection of probably 500 of them myself. And nobody yet has really got it right. The first shot was not the missed shot that hit the curb. When I testified before the Warren Commission, I was put on the spot and asked which shot missed. And you can read it, Volume 7, where I said, well, if I had to guess, I would say it was the second shot. That was a guess. Now that I'm retired, had time to study it, and I do have the 26 volumes. I got everything you can imagine. Those of you who don't know, excuse me, Harold Weisberg and I were friends for over 35 years. Harold's been a guest in my home. I've been a guest in his home, etc. We hardly a week went by what Harold and I had something to say to each other. Harold asked me to join him in some of his Freedom of Information lawsuits, which I did. A lot of people don't know that. But anyway, I guessed for the Warren Commission the second shot. Now that I've studied that, I can say positively the third shot was the shot that missed. Now you go back and you read the testimony very closely. There's a couple people. Well, first of all, there's one person, Secret Service agent, that really messed things up, and that's Bennett, that said he saw the second shot hit Kennedy in the back. Well, he's the only one that said that. Nobody could verify that. Then I said the second shot missed. That wasn't right. But anyway, 3 people, and that was Emmett Hudson, which I think was a very good witness. He was standing on the steps there, and Hudson was a black boy that testified, young black boy, and he said he heard a shot after he saw the headshot. Then you had Royce Skelton, who said almost the same thing. Of course, Royce's testimony was a little muddied because he thought he heard 4 shots. And then you had Foster, and here's another one that things got screwed up. Foster thought he saw a bullet hit near a manhole cover. He was up on the trestle. Well, he did see it, but he got the wrong manhole cover. A lot of people don't realize it, but that bullet that hit in front of me, hit the curb in front of me, hit a foot from a manhole cover. And I'm assuming that's what Foster saw by the time he got down to the area. He was confused which manhole cover. Now, what I'm going back to is people that wrote all these books. I can only recall about 5 people that I've personally been interviewed by. But I see all these people writing like they have talked to me. Gerald Posner is one of them. I never talked to Posner. And finally, after denying, he comes up with a phone bill that shows my phone number on it. Okay? Now he's finding out. And what I think really happened is he talked to one of my daughters. And they told Posner what they thought he wanted to hear. But I never talked to Posner. Never made the statement the first shot, or I didn't know which shot hit. But getting back to what I was talking about is the fact that being a witness, you have to pick these things out. You have to go back and be very careful that you don't enhance what you saw. I caught myself doing it. We got a good example of that in Roger Craig. Craig saw something. We know that. But he kept enhancing a little here, a little there, till finally his story got out of hand. You can, and what I'm talking about, there's certain things that's just so crystal clear, just like they happened yesterday, and there's other things that I did not see. Another thing is when I was giving a statement, and a lot of people don't know this, giving a statement to Gus Rose, Dallas Police Station. There's a little bit of noise there in the hallway, and they brought this guy in handcuffs. 2 policemen did, and Detective Rose, who's taking my statement, he says, "Who is that guy?" I Says, well, that's the guy that killed policemen over in Oak Cliff. Oh, well, that night I saw him on TV as Lee Harvey Oswald. I sat in the police station giving a statement when Oswald was brought in. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is all these witnesses, including myself, you have to sort of skim through that and separate and take what the majority are saying. You can't pick and choose what you want to make true what you want to believe. Now, I heard 3 shots, or 3 noises. I heard the pop of a firecracker and crack of 2 rifle shots. And I want to go back on this pop of a firecracker. I'm over 300 feet away. I can tell. I get a little different sound than the people that's right up there at Houston Street in front of School Book Depository. It was, and of course, as most of you has read, most people thought it was a firecracker going off. And I grew up on a farm with a rifle in my hand. I know what a rifle sounds like. We had 4th of July. I know what a firecracker sounds like. But anyway, the other point I want to make is this delay between the first and second shot. What we got here? Too close? Okay, thank you. In rehearsing what I went through, what went through my mind back then several times, there's 3 to 5 seconds in my mind delay between the first and second shot. The first shot was not the missed shot. I'm pretty certain the third shot was the missed shot. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll try to answer them for you. One other point before we get into questions. The curbstone is setting up in the National Archives. It was patched before it was ever cut out of the street. Shaney Felt was an FBI agent in charge of cutting it out of the street August the 5th of '64, and he took pictures of it that day, and the picture shows it had already been patched before it was ever cut out of the street. Buddy Walters and I touched the mark on the curb. It's a 1/2 inch wide. Another point I'm about to forget is this was a whole bullet that hit that curb, wasn't a fragment. And if you go to the summary, the Warren Commission summary on page 111, there's a paragraph heading there, the missed shot. The missed shot, it's right there. The Warren Commission recognized 1 shot missed. And the paragraph is headed, the shot that missed. And then it goes on, it says, it follows that 1 shot probably missed the car and its occupants. Please accept that. I believe this to be 100% true. If you accept what I'm trying to tell you, you can start unraveling some of the mysteries we've had for 41 years. Another thing, before we get into questions, this pop of a firecracker, in my mind, was a dud. And if you go back and read the autopsy where they was trying to probe the president's back that night and could not go in his back injury, which is 6 inches below his collar, but an inch, and the metal rod wouldn't go in. That first shot was a dud. It went pop. That's the bullet they found on the floor at Parkland Hospital in pristine condition. Now, that's my personal opinion. That's yet to be proven. But you start putting these little simple, common sense things together, you can start answering in your own mind a lot of stuff that's just been going on for years and years and years. Any questions anybody's got?
When you say it's a dud, does that mean it fired but very weakly? What do you mean?
Very weakly. This was 20-some-year-old ammunition.
So where do you think it was during transit to Parkland? Was it like under his coat or something like that?
In his back, and when they worked on the president at Parkland Hospital, it worked out on the stretcher, and it fell off on the floor at Parkland. That bullet didn't come from Conway. Yes, sir.
You were in a good position, I suppose, at some point to see after the shots were fired what was happening on the grassy knoll. Is your recollection that a lot of people were rushing up the hill as some films?
Okay, that's what I was trying to get across. Maybe I did a poor job explaining. That is a blank in my mind. I saw all that on TV that night, And when I tried to tell people what would happen, I'd say, well, all these people rushed up the hill and all that. I didn't see it that moment. There's certain things. But the thing that's most vivid in my mind is the time between the first and second shot. Okay. I remember having enough sense after the third shot to duck out of the way, the shooting. Something stung me. And then seeing the people run up the grass, no, I do not recall it. And this is what I'm trying to make a point of being a witness. You got to separate these facts out. What did you see at that moment, and what did the media influence you to see?
Curious on what basis you would know which of the shots would have been this shot that hit you. Did you feel that right away?
First of all, I knew it was not the first shot. I knew that at that moment. Then, as I study witness, I've got 12 witnesses that pretty much pin it down to the third shot. 3 of them strong. Hudson, who said he heard another shot after seeing the headshot, and he was as close as me and you. Then you got Skelton, and then you got Foster. And Skelton was looking right down. He saw the bullet hit the curb, and he describes it to the left front of the limousine. So the president's car was getting pretty close to triple underpass when that third shot was fired.
Did you hear any echoes at all?
No echoes, none whatsoever where I was. No reverberations, no echoes. Y'all have heard a firecracker go. You know how a firecracker goes pop? It's not a solid noise, and the crack of a high-powered rifle is a very solid noise. These were distinct noises. If you go back and you read, I would guess that maybe 75–80% of the witnesses that day describe what I'm trying to tell you. Pop of a firecracker, then the crack of 2 rifle shots.
You just referred to the sound of a high-powered rifle going off, and a moment ago you referred to the ammunition of the back shot as 20-year-old ammunition.
That's right.
I'm having trouble working that out, because why would the ammunition be 20 years old
Well,
if it wasn't coming from the Mannlicher Carcano?
Let's say there's 3 shots fired. Let's assume 3 shots fired. Let's say that first bullet, they're all the same age, but the age had got to the first bullet, and it didn't have the full firepower of the next 2.
What suggests that it was 20-year-old ammunition?
Well, it's stated. This is every document that you find is this is old ammunition for this. This was an old Italian rifle. I don't know if you've read the book, The Gun, that goes back and traces all the way back to a small village in Italy, but this is old ammunition, old rifle.
Okay, so from your perspective, they were in fact not high-powered rifles, but this Italian carbine.
Well, whether you want to call high-powered or medium-powered or what, it's a rifle shot.
Okay, but in your view, all the shots came not from the Remington Fireball pistol nor any Mauser that...
Sir, I don't know the difference in sound between and different rifle shots, and I don't know of anybody that does.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Tague, thanks for coming this morning. I'm trying to put together, because Penn Jones is the subject of a biography I'm writing, trying to put together all the available data of his theories, which of course, as you know, included multiple gunmen, perhaps as many as 9 in his opinion, and just a hail of bullets in different places, impacting in different areas. Now, what I wanted to clarify with you is whether you're, how close to, how far forward the limo was at the third shot. You indicated a moment ago that it was pretty close to the overpass, and that's a surprise because we know that they painted a white X on Elm Street where the fatal headshot allegedly occurred. So are you reiterating then that that limo was perhaps over by the manhole and the sewer there where Jones also said a shot was fired? Can you confirm that you saw it at least that far forward?
Okay. Penn Jones was a friend of mine also. I visited with Penn in his home in Midlothian when he was the editor or owned the paper down there. Matter of fact, one of the things I still have today is Penn Jones had a 3rd generation Zapruder film that he'd got, Robert Groden had got in New Orleans from Garrison. I still got that copy, 8 millimeter Zapruder. The one in New Orleans was second generation, and Grodin got in there. I don't know how. Garrison turned his back one night and says, okay, it's in the drawer. Just make sure it's back in there the next morning. And Penn got a hold of copies of that and gave me a copy, which I still have today. Now, Penn got a little carried away on some things. 9 shots, 9 gunmen. I think, bless his heart, he's not here to defend himself, but Penn knew that there was more than 1 shooter, 3 shots. But Penn's an interesting study, and Penn gave probably the best advice to a lot of young people that were getting involved in studying the Kennedy assassination. He says, don't try to do it all. Pinpoint on one area and stick to it and find the facts about that one area. That was Penn Jones.
Do you feel, sir, that these could have been volleys and multiple shots per volley?
I don't know what happened, and it's pure speculation. Now, of course, we see the sudden snapback of the head, which is a possibility of a simultaneous shot. One of the things that I'm impressed with is the railroadmen that were rounded up and brought over to the sheriff's office that afternoon, and statements made, not all of them, and others made statements later about the smoke from behind the fence. Now, this is fresh evidence, 2 hours old when they gave these statements. There's a young boy named Miller who's done some work on a film, I forget the name, Wyman or something like that, that he's enhanced that where he shows the smoke drifting away from the fence. Now, I'm yet to prove that to myself that this is real and not something's made up. So I'm not saying that it's fact, but I do have that. Yes, sir.
Hi, Jim. We've corresponded briefly through emails. Ed Tatro. 2 points to try to answer this young man's question here. I wrote an 8,000-word article on the origin of the bullets. The bullets were made in East Alton, Illinois in 1954. They went to Greece, they came through Canada, they came from Vermont, and ended up in Dallas. So they're at least 10 years old. There's a lot more to it than that. The same company that manufactured the bullets which killed Kennedy also supplied ammunition to the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s. Crimes of then and there tied to crimes of here and now. The point, so it's at least 10 years old.
10 years, okay, thank you.
Okay, but in the Warren report it does say 1944, so that's where he's getting that information. What you're basically saying about a dud and the bullet falling out of the back and the probe and all of that is backing Siebert and O'Neill, the 2 FBI agents, in their report. That's what they said. And Hoover made sure that that wasn't in the 26 volumes of the Warren report, obviously, because he...
That's correct.
Have you ever had any discussions with either Siebert or O'Neill?
Not talked with them, either one. Now, see, one of the things about this fragment was Hoover. I'm glad you brought up Hoover. He said no copper found. Okay, now first of all, that curb had been patched before they even did a spectrographic analysis. Also, if you go to Warren Commission, the shirt and tie on the throat, there was a spectrographic analysis done on those, and no copper found. But they used the no copper found to come up with a fragment hitting the curb. Okay, Harold Weisberg asked me to join him in this lawsuit. It took almost 5 years. Finally, when we had the lawsuit won to get the spectrographic plate, like an x-ray plate, the FBI lawyers in court said, well, it's been lost or thrown away to make room for storage. Now, Hoover, don't get me started on Hoover. I'm ashamed of that building in Washington, D.C. I'm ashamed that that building has got his name on it. Somebody needs to get a movement to get his name off. I've got documents that Weisberg has given me. This guy was a scoundrel. This guy did not want to cooperate, did not cooperate. Do you know that even when he was forced into investigating this, there was 25,000 documents generated, investigations. The Warren Commission only got 9,000 of them. Those 14 lawyers, I don't think those 14 lawyers even read the 9,000 documents. December of '63, the FBI interviewed me. This interview did get to the Warren Commission, but they had divided it up into little teams. And the team, the investigation of what I had to say about the missed shot got put on a shelf, and that team never even got involved in it. So they did turn that over. But don't get me started on Hoover. Hoover, I'll stop there. Any other questions?
I was friends with Harold Weisberg too, since a kid. There is another sidewalk down there that was patched as well, which I'll talk to you about in private. And my sentiments are completely agreeing with you about Hoover.
Well,
that's because he was very close to LBJ.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about Harold now. I'm going to go on an argument. See, in 1982, he talked Henry Hurt, Reader's Digest. Harold didn't have the money to get that curb examined in the National Archives, so he got Henry Hurt and his crew with the Reader's Digest to get an engineering firm and go in the National Archives and examine this curb. I got the engineering report where they testify where the curb's been patched. It's sitting there right now, patched. There's documented, there's tampered with evidence in our National Archives right now today. The curb where that bullet hit is patched. It's got a different texture to it. It's darker with a different texture. Y'all know what concrete looks like with the aggregate in it. You know what mortar looks like, thin, sandy. That's the difference. There's a difference in color. But anyway, Harold and I had this argument going on for years. He said, well, it's been patched. There's no hole in it anymore. I said, Harold, there never was a hole. It maybe took 1/8 of an inch of concrete off right at the very round. Well, it's been patched. Well, finally, in a little bit of anger one evening, back in 1997, I said, well, I'm going to go to the archives and I'm going to look at it myself. In April '97, with the help of our U.S. Senator, they wasn't going to let me in there, K. Bailey Hutchison, I went to the National Archives, and of course, because the Senator had got me in there, I got the VIP treatment. And one of the assistant manager of the archives, and I went in there, I had it set out on a table, room, all for us, out of the box. And I sat down, I had my magnifying glass, going to really eyeball it. Didn't need my magnifying glass. I said, well, it has been passed. The assistant manager of the archives says, yeah, I can see that. It sits there, folks, right now, today, National Archives, tampered evidence.
Well, we should add also, Jim, that they left the curb there for 8.5 months.
8.5 months, August the 5th. Now, here's another story. See, I raised my hand when I read in the newspaper on June the 5th of 1964, the Warren Commission was closing down. All 3 shots hit in the limousine, 1 Kennedy, 2 Connally, 3 Kennedy. I raised my hand to a young reporter, Jim Lair, same Jim Lair, here in Dallas. He was a cub reporter, Dallas Times Herald. I said, don't use my name. He didn't use my name. But I've got documents now that before the Times Herald even came out that day, they had FBI agents in Lair's office interviewing him. They also had, there's another document, they knew right where to go get pictures that day, dated June the 5th, of where that bullet had hit. Yet to the Warren Commission, they denied 2 separate times between the time I testified, July 23rd, I'm talking about from June 5th, July 23rd, they could not find where that bullet had hit the curb. I testified on the 23rd. Guess what happened on the 24th? Oh, we found where the bullet hit the curb.
How soon after do you think that curb was passed? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
You never went back and checked it?
No, I went down there in May. I was going to visit my parents. I went down in May of '64. I was going to the Indy 500. My folks lived in Indiana. Going to take some pictures. Took some pictures. When I testified July 23rd, right in the middle of my testimony, I'm asked, what were you doing back down there in May taking pictures?
The other area across on your side of the street where there was considerable photography involving Buddy Walters allegedly looking at something on
Right.
the grass there. Did you say moments ago that some bullet did hit that concrete there?
No, I realized it's probably 10 or 15 minutes after the assassination, I realized my car was still parked in the street. Okay, and I left. I had to get it out of the street. That happened, I think according to the clock on those pictures, it was 12:40. 12:40. I did not notice that. I did not notice it. Now, Walters took almost every deputy sheriff in the sheriff's department down there and showed them that mark. He took Tom Dillard and Jim Underwood down there the next afternoon. And if you look at some of those pictures, you'll see some darkness inside where the bullet hit. That is afternoon darkness. It was all gray. This was not, there was no dark marks left in where the bullet hit. That is afternoon shadow that you see on Saturday afternoon.
Do you think that was a bullet strike that hit that concrete section of the sewer?
I'm talking about where I was now. Okay.
You don't have any thought or
No. Now Buddy Walters tried to push this. There's probably a little 2-inch article in the Dallas Morning News on Sunday that I'm sure Walters had something to do with. And then in about the 12th day of December, there was a lengthy article in the Dallas Morning News of Walters trying to tell them that there was a bullet missed and where it hit and all that. I've got that article. But that was the only 2 articles about a missed shot, period. And both of those were I could attribute to Buddy Walters.
curb, not to the
To the curb. I'm talking about the curb. I'll tell you another blonde joke if you want to hear one.
Mr. Tague, I'm Gary Aguilar.
Hey, Dr. Aguilar.
I'm the fellow who called you up one time.
I've never met you. I remember your phone call, and you asked me, said, what have you, what have you done? Changed your mind? Changed your story? I said, what? And I had to go buy Posner's book. I'm sorry I had to spend my money, but I did. But anyway, no, I remember that phone call very well. For most of you, and I'm not trying to be boastful, but I have an excellent memory. I was in the automobile business for years, rose up to where I was part owner of a couple of dealerships at one time, was general manager for a long time. And at one time, I could go out and look at a serial number, 17-digit serial number, look at it, go back, sit down in my office, and write down that serial number. So I have a pretty good memory. Now that I'm 68 years old, don't test me on that, okay? But doctor, I think I figured out what happened. I think Aguilar talked to a member of my family.
Yeah, you mean Posner did. Yeah,
Posner, I'm sorry.
The funny story about this is that for reasons that I can't disclose, I know Gerald Posner personally, and I had an occasion when his book came out, and also when he testified in Congress, he'd said he'd given testimony about what the Dallas doctor, about what one of the autopsy pathologists had said, Dr. Boswell, and he had testified about what you had said about which shot missed and which one didn't. In any case, I called both you and Dr. Boswell because he said that Dr. Boswell had agreed that he'd move the wound back to a place where Boswell had never said that the wound was. And then when I got you on the phone, after I'd spoken to Harold Weisberg, he said he hasn't changed his mind about not having been hit by the first shot. So I called you up on the phone to ask you about that as well. I don't know that I ever sent it to you, and I probably did not, but I ultimately published your claim that he had misrepresented your opinion.
I have it.
And, oh, you did have that. Okay, good. And that, in fact, you'd never spoken with him despite his clear indication that he had. subsequent to that, Mr. Posner has religiously dodged these questions and produced these phone records that no one can validate or verify. To say that he did, and yet he has continued to promise people that he would release his documents and release his evidence.
Nothing.
He has stonewalled people for the last 10 years. So
That's correct.
I want to at least thank you for staying true to your recollection to me. I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you. I remember the phone call because it caught me by surprise. Well, has anybody else got a question? Anything else? Now, also, I want to clear up something for John here. That day, John, I had no idea of coming and see President Kennedy. I did have my mind on a cute little red-headed stockbroker that worked in downtown Dallas of taking her to lunch. And to get to downtown, I swung off Stemmons. Coming under the triple underpass, cars were stopped in front of me, and I stopped. Well, what's happening? A car accident or something? A couple cars up, a guy's leaning on his car door looking. I get out, and I look up there. There's a big crowd around the school book depository up at the corner of Houston and Elm. And well, what's this? And about that time, here comes this car with two flags on the fender around the corner. And I remember reading in the Dallas Morning News that President Kennedy was going to be in town. And it probably wasn't 2 or 3 seconds later, here's the pop of the firecracker. But no, I was not planning on seeing Kennedy. So all this started with me just going to lunch with a redhead.
May I ask one question? As a witness, did you ever feel threatened, or were you ever threatened?
I guess I was too dumb to feel threatened, because no, I never did. Never felt threatened. The only thing that's puzzled me is before I testified, I'd taken these pictures in May back of where the bullet had hit the curb to show my parents where I thought the bullet hit the curb. And after I got home, I went to looking. I had some photos, some movies. It was 8 millimeters. I'd been at the Indianapolis 500, and I caught the crash that killed 2 race car drivers right in front of me. And also the photographs of Dealey Plaza, and the photographs of Dealey Plaza had disappeared from my house. That's the only funny thing that's ever happened. So, somebody else had a question over here?
Yeah. I'm sorry, one final question. In the years, I know you say your memory blanked at a certain point after the initial shot, but in the years after, obviously you've been very avid student of the whole episode. Have you come to know a number of other witnesses in Dealey Plaza, and do you get together and you compare notes over the years?
The only one is Jim Lavelle. We've been on some talk shows together. Jim Lavelle's about it. Of course, I've known a lot. Jim Mars and Gary Shaw and Harold Weisberg and I were close. And had some interesting things with Harold. An interview with number 2 man with H.L. Hunt, which cleared up a bunch of things that Harold did. Can't even think of his name right now, forgive me. But yeah, I've come to know a lot of people. And Robert Groden, I've kept in touch with through the years. I'm sorry, there's a lot of them I just can't recall right now.
And your sense, though, from talking to people over the years, is that your hunch is that there was some activity on the grassy knoll that day.
I can't get past that sudden snap of the head backwards. Okay? There's some theories out there that try to prove it could have happened. I don't buy them. I do not buy them. Of course, there's a momentary, and if you break this down, and I've got to do some studies on this myself, that momentary forward movement just before the snap backwards. Now, first of all, we got to accept that Oswald's involved in some way. We got to accept that. But you start studying and getting into some of the things the CIA was doing back in the 40s and the 50s, mind control. Compare that to Sirhan that has no recollection of killing Bobby Kennedy. Was somebody in control of Oswald? And the thing that really, the thing for me is Baker and Truly running into Oswald on the second floor a minute and 15 seconds after the assassination. Oswald's buying a Coke. Both of them testified, Baker and Truly testified before the Warren Committee, calm, cool, collected, was not out of breath. And he's 4 floors below the 6th floor. He's on the 2nd floor. A minute and 15 seconds later. I can't get past that point.
Those 2 shots you heard, the crack, do you think those shots could have come from a bolt-action rifle, the same rifle?
I think you'll find that most rifle shots will sound alike.
No, I mean the time spacing.
The time spacing was pretty close together. Now people ask, well, they come from the grassy knoll or where? Well, let me tell you, if you go down there over the weekend, stand where I stood, between Commerce and Maine, about 15 feet out from the Triple Underpass, and look at the Texas School Book Depository. Here's the grassy knoll, there's the Dow Tex building. It's all right there from where I was standing. There's no big gap. It's right there.
But could you, I guess I'm asking you to guess the time between those 2 shots. When you said crack, was that basically the same sequence you heard it? Was it that close together?
Maybe a second apart, maybe 2 seconds at the most.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now you're asking me from memory.
Yeah.
And this is where my mind starts to get fuzzy because something stuck me. When something physical happens to you, you're distracted by it. And something had stung me in the face. Now the time between the first and second shot is just as vivid as could be. I could go through that today just like it happened yesterday, trying to figure out what idiot would be throwing a firecracker.
Did the presidential limousine stop at any point during the firing sequence?
I'm sorry I didn't catch that.
Did the limousine stop at any point during the sequence?
According to all testimony, and I didn't witness this, I was there, I probably looking at it, but it didn't register, it almost came to a stop. It almost came to a stop. But as far as stopping, I don't think it's, maybe somebody could correct me on that, I don't think it actually came to a total stop. Now, another thing, another point of common sense is this Alkins photograph showing Kennedy reaching for his throat. Let's back up a minute. What happens, and remember I said this first shot was a dud. Hit Kennedy in the back, maybe went in an inch. What happens if you got somebody standing in front of you, they don't know you're going to do this, and you walk up and you poke them in the back? What do their arms do? That's the reaction. This is my thought, this is my theory, that when that bullet penetrated Kennedy's back about an inch, inch and a half, that his reaction was like this, and that's what Alkins photographed, was this reaction, not reaching for his throat. Now, to explain the throat injury, and this is personal opinion again, we know at least one shot did hit him from the rear. A fragment of that shot caused the throat injury. If you study an injury that all these doctors thought was an entrance wound, a low velocity fragment would leave the same type of injury. Somebody else had a question. The last question. Anybody else?
If indeed the throat shot was caused by a fragment, are you suggesting, sir, that it was a fragment from the bullet that caused the back wound?
Head, that hit him in the head. Hit him in the head. Not the back, but the head. The head. Remember the bullet hit him in the head, fragmented.
Thank you.
And exited from the front? Entered his head in the next...
It blew the side of his head off.
But the entrance room here, you said was from a bullet up here?
The throat wound
The throat wound,
could have been a low-velocity exit wound from the bullet hitting him in the back of the head.
in the back of the head.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Jim will be here for a bit, and he has a book out and has copies available here. I could probably autograph them for you, and that's out on the table. Tom Blackwell, a local researcher who many of you may know, he sends out emails of all the Dallas coverage of assassination-related materials. Made available to us very nicely some coupons that would accommodate up to 24 people at the Antares restaurant. That's the restaurant that's up on the Space Needle by the Hyatt Regency here. And they have a Sunday brunch, and so and it's a discount ticket, so I thought I'd put a sign-up sheet out there, but if people are interested, we'll extend the lunch from noon to 2 on Sunday, and people can go up there as a group to eat, and I'll put a sign-up list out there. People, want to come, but we can accommodate a discount for at least 24 people on Sunday during the lunch break. And